Welcome to the book reading program of 3ABN Australia Radio. Does your faith need a boost? Do you think that miracles only happened in Bible times? Think again. Compiled by Remnant Publications, the book Get Ready for a Miracle recounts true stories that prove that when we step out in faith, God displays His power in undeniable ways. Here is our reader, Harold Harker.
This story is entitled, Where Did That Come From? 1 Kings 17:14-16 says, For thus saith the Lord God of Israel, The bin of flour shall not be used up, nor shall the jar of oil run dry, until the day the Lord sends rain on the earth. So she went away and did according to the word of Elijah, and she and he and her household ate for many days. The bin of flour was not used up, nor did the jar of oil run dry, according to the word of the Lord, which he spoke by Elijah. There was a small school up in the mountain regions of the Mayan island of Fiji. I heard it was struggling financially, and they were considering shutting it down. This is the only primary school in the area, so kids as young as 6 would have to leave home and live in a faraway boarding school to get an education. As it was, about 15 of the 65 children were living at the school during the week because they lived too far from the school to commute each day. Some of the other kids had to swim the river each day to get to school. I got up early one morning and drove way up into the mountains, eventually reaching the end of the road. I then had to swim across a river and walk the rest of the way up to the school. When I got there, I found one of the most beautiful places I had ever seen. The school had hundreds of acres of flat, fertile farmland along the river. The teachers and children were only able to farm a few acres as they had to do it by hand with sharpened sticks. That was the only means by which the school had been surviving over the years. That night, I went out to look up at the stars, and the Milky Way was so bright it felt like I could just reach up and touch them. They had no running water, so they used the river water, which was a quarter-mile walk. This led to outbreaks of dysentery and other problems, especially during the rainy season when the water was muddy. There was no electricity, as their Lister generator had broken down in the early 1970s, and they could never afford to fix it. I spoke with the principal, and he explained to me the desperate situation the school was in. He explained that there was a non-profit group from the United States that would match funds with any village or school that was trying to get a clean water system installed. As I was leaving, I thought to myself, I'm on my way to the airport, so why not give him the $160 Fijian that I have in my pocket, and he can put it toward the $930 he needed to get the non-profit group to fund the rest of his water line. I waited until the last minute. Then I reached into my pocket and gave him the money. Then I headed to the airport. The following year, I returned to this little school to deliver some of the supplies we had just shipped over there. When the principal saw me coming up from the river, he ran and hugged me and said, "Come and see what we've done." I followed him behind the school, and there stood a new water pipe sticking out of the ground. He reached over, turned it on, and out flowed beautiful, cool, clean water from a spring 3 miles away. When they put the water line in, they ran it through 2 other villages so they could have water too. I could not believe my eyes. They had running water, but how? I turned and said, "Where did you get all the money for this?" He looked at me puzzled and said, "From you." I thought for a second and said, "I didn't give you $930. He replied, "No, you gave me $960. I used the $30 to buy a bus ticket to Suva and back, and $930 for half of the project." I stood there thinking for a moment. That cannot be true. Then I realised something strange but wonderful had happened. So I said, "I don't think it was from me. I think someone bigger than you and I touched that money as it went from my hand to yours." He smiled and said, "I think you're right." I took a deep breath and said, "Now that you have running water, what's needed next?" He looked at me and said quietly, "It would be nice to have flush toilets for the children." I responded, "I will see what I can do." A few months later, I returned to Fiji with my whole family. This time we had 40,000 pounds of stuff, including 6 toilets, 2 sinks, and all the material needed to build a washroom for them, along with lots of other stuff. It took us 2 days to take everything across the river by bamboo raft and on up to the school. The horse we were using to help pull the raft quit on us in the middle of the second day. As we were taking everything across the river, I started thinking about a better way to do it. You see, I am actually lazy at heart, so I'm always trying to find an easier way. I decided to buy a boat for them. I knew that it should not have a motor due to the price and difficulty of getting gas, and because sticks in the river would break the propeller. So I needed to come up with a way of using the river current to propel the boat from one side to the other. I decided that I would take a 1,000-foot steel cable and attach it between 2 big mango trees on each side of the river. Then I would attach a set of large roller bearings on the main cable that would roll back and forth across the river. Then I would take 2 smaller cables and attach the shorter one to the front of the boat and the longer one to the rear. The boat would sit at a 75-degree angle to the flow of the water, causing it to glide across the river. I told the chief of the village what I was going to do, and he laughed and shook his head. We came back a week later and installed the whole thing. As I got ready to try the boat out for the first time, I noticed the chief sitting down the riverbank with long bamboo poles. I asked, "What are they for?" And he laughed and said in Fijian, "When Noah's boat doesn't go across the river, he can use one of my bamboo poles to push it across." I laughed, but I was thinking, I sure hope this works, or I'll be known as Mr. Noah from now on. It worked, and now the children can get to school safely even when the river is flooded. The school has a diesel Kubota tractor that I bought them, so all the villagers who live in the other 2 villages can get their produce to market now. They told me that a few days later, some government officials came and took notes on how to build the same thing for other villages throughout the islands. Since then, the school has gone from 65 kids to 200, and the financial problems are gone. They've been making so much money that they've been able to lower their tuition and send excess funds to other schools that are still struggling. That is just one of the amazing things that has happened in my life that feeds my faith and optimism. I believe that anything you set out to do in life to help others in need will work out. That is why I believe so strongly that even greater things are going to continue to happen here at Omidyar if we stay focused on the needs of others and not of ourselves. I want each one of you to see that when you decide to step out and help, it does work. Even if you think it is small, do it anyway. You never know how far $160 will go. A reflection associated with this story comes from Prophets and Kings, page 132. To his faithful servants today, Christ says, "He that receiveth you receiveth me, and he that receiveth me receiveth him that sent me." No act of kindness shown in his name will fail to be recognised and rewarded. And in the same tender recognition, Christ includes even the feeblest and lowliest of the family of God. "Whosoever shall give to drink," he says, "unto one of these little ones, those who are as children in their faith and their knowledge of Christ, a cup of cold water only in the name of a disciple, verily I say unto you, he shall in no wise lose his reward." This story, entitled "Where Did That Come From?", was written by Ray and Jackie Brosseuk of Partners for Others in British Columbia, Canada. You can visit their website partnersforothers.com for more information.
You've been listening to the book reading program by 3ABN Australia Radio, featuring Get Ready for a Miracle. For more information about this book, visit remnantpublications.com.